Hello, BookTube. But there are lots and lots of videos I want to make for you. I don't understand the refrain I sometimes hear from booktubers about how they haven't made a video in a while because they can't think of an idea. That just mystifies me. What you have to do in a circumstance like that is reach deep inside and embrace your Grandpa Simpson. You must not be afraid of tedium. Anyway, in between now and when I make all those videos, because I've got a million ideas, it's just at the end of the month, the end of every month, my non-booktube life tends to clamor for attention. Deadlines and all sorts of things crop up and need to be dealt with. So lots of videos coming, but in the meantime, I thought we would do a mail haul because today the mail is not disappointing, which is nice. And this is just the first batch, so the day's total haul of mail will probably be completely normal. But we've got a little stack of things here. Let's see what kind of trouble we can get into. What is this first one? Okay. This is not anything I requested, of course, because it's Little A, the publishing arm of Amazon, and I don't request anything from Little A. So all of their books come to me unrequested. So this comes out in October, and it is called Halsey Street by Naima Coster. Penelope Grand has scrapped her failed career as an artist in Pittsburgh and moved back to Brooklyn to keep an eye on her ailing father. She's accepted that her future won't be what she's dreamed, but now, as gentrification has completely reshaped her old neighborhood, even the past is unrecognizable. Even her mother, Morella, has abandoned the family to reclaim her roots in the Dominican Republic. That took courage. It's also unforgivable. When Penelope moves into the attic apartment of the affluent Harpers, she thinks she's found a semblance of family, maybe even love. But her world is upended again when she receives a postcard from Morella asking for reconciliation. As old wounds are reopened and secrets revealed, a journey across an ocean of sacrifice and self-discovery begins. And this is a debut novel. And that just rips my, that just tugs at my heart, because this is a debut novel. So this is a first-time novelist. That premise, of course, as I'm sure you would agree, is full of promise. It sounds very interesting. That premise alone would make me want to read the first chapter of the book. And I can just imagine what a first-time author was going through. Naima Coster probably did the usual route, right? Sending out endless query letters to agents, endless cold query letters to publishers, trying to get some attention for her manuscript. Maybe Amazon seemed, lurking in the background there was always a possibility. Maybe it finally seemed it's this or nothing. Or maybe it was her first choice. I don't know. Anyway, as usual, until I come up with a Steve policy, I will certainly read it with a wide open mind and might even really like it. There have been a couple this year that I've really liked from Little A. But anything beyond that, I don't know what to do yet, except for these videos. So at least you'll know it's there, because you're never going to see these in a bookstore. You'll see them on Amazon's website, I'm sure. Halsey Street is a debut piece of fiction that actually does sound promising. Let's move on. Let's problematic opening. What is this next one? Okay, this is by Polina Dashkova, translated by Marion Schwartz, called Madness Treads Lightly. Of course, madness never does anything of the kind. So it's one of those book title cliches that doesn't mean anything even as a cliche. But only 3 people in the world can connect a present-day murderer to a serial killer who, 14 years ago, terrorized a small Siberian town, and one of them is already dead. I think we saw this already, didn't we? Didn't we see the beginning of this? And I complained about it again because this is also an Amazon title. This is Amazon Crossing, which is their translated literature imprint. Apparently, Polina Dashkova is celebrated as the Russian crime queen. It's the author of Russia's most successful author of crime novels. She sold over 50 million copies of her books. Good Lord. And now this is a paperback original from Amazon. So did I tell you when this comes out? Yeah, this comes out in mid-September. This comes out in very little time. All right, so 2 Amazon hits. Let's keep moving and hope that this isn't just an entire mail haul of Amazon. What is this next one? Oh. Oh boy, oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. All right. This comes out in January. This is The Largesse of the Sea Maiden by the late Dennis Johnson, who just recently died and who is utterly fantastic. This is his last book. The Largesse of the Sea Maiden is a long-awaited news story collection from Dennis Johnson. It follows the groundbreakingly highly acclaimed Jesus' Son. Written in the same luminous prose, this collection finds Johnson in new territory, contemplating old age, mortality, the ghosts of the past, and elusive and unexpected ways the mysteries of the universe assert themselves. Finished shortly before his death in May of 2017, this collection is the last word from a writer whose work will live on for many years to come. It's going to be hard to read. I'm enormously looking forward to it, but it's going to be hard to read. Okay, all right. So great. That's going to get reviewed everywhere in January. Every single publication everywhere in the world is going to write it up at least, and some of them will do one of those soup to nuts. Here's Johnson's whole career thing, where this book is a fulcrum, but they talk about everything else. That everybody in the world, in the Western world, is going to do that. Wow, okay. It's a Caleb book. This is The Exodus: How It Happened and Why It Matters, by Richard Elliott Friedman. How It Happened and Why It Matters by Harper One. This comes out in mid-September. The courtroom leading question that is buried encoded in the subtitle is that it happened at all. We're supposed to just take that. We're going to examine how it happened and why it matters, not whether or not it happened at all. Pioneering Bible scholar Richard Elliott Friedman, author of the best-selling Who Wrote the Bible, decided to put on his detective hat in search of answers about the Exodus. In this compelling new book, he shows that there is a strong case for the reality of a group of Hebrews escaping enslavement in Egypt and returning to the Promised Land with radical new ideas about God and how we are to treat one another, including strangers who live in our midst. Okay. There is no compelling evidence for any part of that. This is not a question of an author talking about higher mathematics or the rainfall in New Guinea or anything like that. This is an author telling me about a subject I know quite well, and there is no compelling evidence for any part of that assertion. I think we might have seen this on this channel before, because I seem to remember summarily removing this author's margin of doubt once before. But it doesn't matter. I have a copy of this, and I haven't read it, and I really should. I want to read it. The Exodus uses the latest historical and literary evidence to answer three questions. There's no new literary evidence. There's no latest literary evidence. This is the most studied work of literature in the history of humankind. The three questions, in case you want to know. Number one, is the Exodus from Egypt a story or history? It is a story. It is not history. Captive population, millions and millions of Jews never lived in Egypt and never summarily left all at once. That's a story. That's obviously a myth. Number two, how did monotheism, the idea of there being only one God, come about? Well, there's a long and complicated answer to that question, but what it has to do with the Jews of Exodus, I have no idea. They weren't monotheists. Anyway, let's move on to question number three. What person or events gave us the idea we should love others as ourselves? Loving others as ourselves is not contained anywhere in the Exodus story. It isn't even hinted in the Exodus story. So why it's being asked in connection with this story, I have no idea. Where is that even coming from? What literary or religious scholar is going to claim that the Jews of the Old Testament had a doctrine of loving others as themselves? Literally open the Hebrew Bible to any part, stick a pin in at random, and you will hit a... Anyway, let's move on. Friedman explains that none of this makes any sense. A quarter of the population of Egypt did not suddenly immigrate at any point in Egypt's history. In case you don't know, and those of you who know anything about ancient Egypt will know, they were meticulous record keepers. They'd have mentioned it. and Jewish people whose God's very first commandment is "Thou shalt have no other gods before me" are not monotheists. And who or what gave us the idea that we should treat everyone as we treat ourselves? Well, maybe Hammurabi, possibly Jesus Christ, certainly no one in the Old Testament. Anyway, Friedman explains that the implications of this historical event. See? So, question number 1, is the Exodus from Egypt a story or history? 3 lines later, Friedman explains that the implications of this historical event, so that question is answered now, are crucial to contemporary religion and culture. From a spectrum of disciplines, state-of-the-art archaeological breakthroughs, oh, give me a break, and fresh discoveries within Scripture, he brings real evidence of historical basis for the Exodus, the history behind the story. Fresh discoveries from Scripture. Okay. All right, well, my blood is up. So this book, unfortunately for it and its author, has just been bumped to the front of the queue. But let's go on to the next package. Okay. What? Oh my God! It's an Olive book. But don't I get to keep any of my own books anymore? First a Caleb book has to go right in the mail to him. Now an Olive book. This is The Empire Must Die: Russia's Revolutionary Collapse, 1900 to 1917, by Mikhail Zygar. This comes out in November as 2017 slowly putters to an end, and I presume with it takes all of this glut of Russia books, the commemorating the 100th anniversary. I'm just assuming. So let's see here. On the centennial of the Russian Revolution comes The Empire Must Die. Many Bothans died to bring us this book. A bold new interpretation of the revolution's origins by influential Russian journalist Mikhail Zygar, former editor-in-chief of the only independent TV station in Russia, author of All the Kremlin's Men, and one of Russia's smartest and best-sourced young journalists, according to Ellen Barry in the New York Times. Here, the author pits the intellectual and cultural masses, not just Lenin and the Bolshevik Party, on the front lines. There's no chance whatsoever that this is a bold new interpretation. Just like the Book of Exodus, there have been approximately 4.5 million interpretations of the Russian Revolution. There's no chance this is a bold new one. It might still be really good. The windows between two equally stifling autocracies, the imperial family and the communists, was open only briefly. But from the last years of Tolstoy until the death of the Tsar and his family, Russia experimented with liberalism and cultural openness. In Europe, the ballet russe was the height of chic. Novelists and playwrights blossomed. Political ideas were swapped in coffee houses, and St. Petersburg felt briefly like Vienna or Paris. It felt like Vienna or Paris longer than briefly, I think. The state, however, couldn't tolerate such experimentation against the backdrop of the catastrophic First World War and a failing economy. It is not the war itself, though, that plunges Russia into the abyss, but the fact that the Russian state, with its veritable army of bureaucrats and officials, is unable to cope. As a result, this brief, exotic time is swept away by the tyranny of the communist revolution. I don't believe that. I think that the previous government, for all of its top-heaviness and all of its bureaucrats and all of its waste and all of its myopia, was working just fine. I think the description in that paragraph tells us that it was working relatively fine. And it was swept away not because it was antiquated or unable to cope, but through force. And that the aftermath of that sweeping away were massive intentional famines, gigantic sweeping genocides, and an ideological straitjacket from which the country has never recovered. But I could be wrong. Curiously, this period is regarded by some contemporaries as the most prosperous time in the history of the Russian Empire, a corpulent decade, while others see it as a gloomy age of repression, electoral rigging, and nod and wink justice. Today's Russian middle class unconsciously expects a recurrence of the events of 1917. Is that true? What? Is that true? Today's Russian middle class unconsciously expects a countrywide revolution? It's true that Russia in the midst of 21st century, in the early 21st century, looks nothing like its early 20th century counterpart. Society today is incomparably more educated and successful than 100 years ago. Nevertheless, the psychological trauma is still felt. The experience of the Red Terror forces new generations of Russians to repeatedly ask themselves, should I leave? Will it soon be too late? The psychological trauma of the Bolshevik Revolution is still felt in Russia. I've spent time in St. Petersburg. I've spent time in Moscow. I didn't detect it. Maybe yes. Russia has never come to terms with its past. Okay, all right. I am sold. Okay, so we'll. This comes out in early November, and I'll get right on it. These are all fascinating. And then we've got this last one. Believe it or not, this Rant Fest is almost over. Let's see what this one is. Oh. Very nice. Oh, very nice. This comes out in late November. This is a subject I actually can't get enough of. This is called Prairie Fires, The American Dreams of Laura Ingalls Wilder. It's a new biography by Caroline Fraser. The first comprehensive historical biography of Laura Ingalls Wilder, the beloved author of Little House on the Prairie and all of the connected books. Millions of readers of Little House on the Prairie believe they know Laura Ingalls, and that's true. The pioneer girl who survived blizzards and near starvation on the Great Plains, and the woman who wrote the famous autobiographical books. But the true story of her life has never been fully told. Now, drawing on unpublished manuscripts, letters, diaries, and land and financial records. Ooh, that's interesting. That last part is interesting. Caroline Fraser masterfully fills in the gaps in Wilder's biography. With fresh insight and new discoveries about Wilder's life and times, Prairie Fires sets the record straight regarding charges of ghostwriting that are swirled around the books and reveals the grown-up story behind the most influential childhood epic of pioneer life. And I have seen all sorts of advanced buzz for this thing, and I couldn't wait to get it. I'm so happy to have it now. That's wonderful. She's just endlessly fascinating. The more you read about Laura Ingalls Wilder, the more fascinating she gets. She's done a huge amount of autobiographical writing on her own, and there's also been a very conscientious effort to publish lots and lots of letters. And I've already my only regret is that I think I've already worn out my Laura Ingalls Wilder welcome at the Christian Science Monitor. I'm pretty sure they're not going to let me. I reviewed a book of her letters a year ago, and I don't think they're going to let me do it again, which is kind of a shame. But I won't lack for venues to write about this, and I really want to. Great, fantastic. I hope it's great. So there you go. That is the wrestling match today. We have Prairie Fires, a big investigative new biography of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Fantastic. Then The Empire Must Die, which I'm not sure is true, but the author has annoyed me enough so that I now want to read his book. Then The Exodus, how it happened and why it matters. Then Dennis Johnson, The Last Dennis Johnson, The Largesse of the Sea Maiden. And then two Amazon books, two works of Amazon fiction, one translated from the Russian Queen of Crime, and a debut novel that clearly has all the right hopes. So it furthers my Amazon questions, but I'm not going to answer them today. But that's nice. That's a nice, thought-provoking mail haul. So I will get right to work on it, and I will see you soon. Thank you, Book 2.